He told them everything. Names, dates, locations, methods of murder. He gave up everyone, from the low-level triggerman to his own boss, the powerful Louis Lepke Buchhalter. His memory was phenomenal. He remembered the details of dozens of murders committed years ago. His testimony became a death sentence for the entirety of Murder, Inc. Thanks to Reels, dozens of gangsters went to prison. His former colleagues were sent away for life or to the electric chair, one after another. He single-handedly destroyed the organization he had served so faithfully. He became the most valuable and simultaneously the most hated informant in American history. The Mafia put out a contract on his life. A $100,000 bounty was placed on his head. Reels was guarded like a national treasure. He was placed in a room at the Half Moon Hotel on Coney Island on the 6th floor. 6 police officers guarded him around the clock. He was the golden canary who was about to sing his last and most important song, testifying against Albert Anastasia, the Lord High Executioner himself. This testimony could bring down the entire top tier of the Mafia. The tension was mounting. The entire criminal world held its breath. The trial of Anastasia was just around the corner. Reels was calm and confident. He was in the most secure room in New York City, surrounded by police. He thought he had outplayed the system, that he had cheated death itself. He believed that after the trial, he would get a new identity and start a new life. He couldn't have been more wrong. On the night of November 12, 1941, just hours before he was due in court, the unthinkable happened. Abe "Kid Twist" Reels, the most protected witness in the country, fell out of his 6th-floor hotel room window. His body was found on the roof of a 3rd-floor extension below. He was dead. The traitor had paid his price. The official police story was laughable. They claimed Reels was trying to escape using bed sheets tied together, but slipped and fell. No one believed it. How could he escape from under the noses of 6 cops? Why would he run when he was promised freedom? The streets knew the truth. The Mafia had gotten to him, even where it seemed impossible. A legend was born on the streets, a phrase that became an epitaph for all traitors. The canary could sing, but he couldn't fly. Reels' death became a symbol that you can't escape the laws of the streets. You can try to cheat the system, but the system will find you wherever you are. It will reach you even on the 6th floor of a police-guarded hotel. This story isn't just a crime tale. It's a brutal lesson about loyalty and betrayal, about how, in a world ruled by power and fear, a blood oath is not just empty words. Abe Reels wanted to save his own life, but in the end, he lost everything. He went down in history not as a feared gangster, but as the most famous rat, whose fall from the 6th floor became an eternal reminder of the price of betrayal. His death saved Albert Anastasia. Without the key witness, the case against him fell apart. The Lord High Executioner walked free and continued to terrorize the criminal world for many years. And Murder, Inc., though decapitated, remained in history as the most efficient and ruthless squad of hitmen that ever existed. Their legacy is one of fear and blood. Anyone who steps onto the slippery path of street life should remember this story. The story of how the sharpest blade, the most loyal soldier of the system, decided he was smarter than everyone else. He tried to break the rules of the game, but the game broke him. His fall became a legend, whispered in dark alleys and smoke-filled bars. The moral of this story is simple and brutal, like a knife stab in a dark alley. In the world of crime, there's no such thing as former. There is no forgiveness. And sooner or later, you have to pay for every action. For Abe Reels, the payment wasn't a bullet from an enemy, but a short, deadly flight on a cold November night. He paid the ultimate price, proving one simple street truth to everyone: never betray your own. Because bullets have a way of finding you even in the most secure fortress. And when that happens, there will be no one there to offer you a hand. You'll be left alone with your choice. And that choice will determine whether you go down in history as a legend or as a despised traitor. This story is about choices, a choice between life and death, honor and disgrace, and about how, sometimes in trying to save yourself, you only hasten your own end. The streets don't forgive weakness, and they never forget betrayal. That is the ultimate law, written not in ink, but in blood. And it still holds true today.
So, when you hear about high-profile arrests and deals with the prosecution, remember the canary who couldn't fly. His story is an eternal reminder that in the criminal world, as in life, your greatest asset is your reputation and your word. And once you betray them, you set off a chain reaction that always has the same ending. Think about what drives people to take such risks: a thirst for life, fear, or cold calculation. In a world of big money and immense power, there's no room for sentiment. It's every man for himself, and the story of Abe Reels is the most vivid proof of that. He was a king, but he died an outcast. His fall marked the beginning of the end for an entire era of gangsters. The old guard was fading, and new, even hungrier and more vicious predators were taking their place. But they learned the lesson Abe Reels taught them with his fall forever: trust no one, and deal with traitors quickly and publicly. This dark urban saga shows us the underbelly of the criminal world, what's hidden behind the shine of expensive suits and clouds of cigar smoke. There, in the shadows, brutal laws reign, and breaking any of them is a dance with death. And in this game, as we've seen, there are no winners. Reels was a product of his system. He was its perfect soldier, its attack dog. But when the system decided to devour him, he bared his teeth. And that defiance cost him his life. But in the process, he dragged the entire leadership of the organization he once swore eternal loyalty to down with him. A true paradox. His story is still debated today. Who was he? A coward, saving his own skin? Or a man who, at the last moment, decided to atone for his sins by cleaning the city of people just like him? There's no single answer, but one thing is certain: his decision changed the history of the American Mafia forever. He was a cog in a huge machine of death, but when this small cog flew out of the mechanism, it caused a complete collapse. Murder, Inc. never recovered from his betrayal. He showed everyone that even the most powerful and secret organization has a weak spot: the human factor. The fear of death is stronger than any oath. Ironically, the man who took hundreds of lives ultimately saved thousands by stopping this bloody assembly line. But to the streets, he will forever remain a traitor. His name became a common slur, synonymous with the word snitch. And so, a brutal street legend turned into a cautionary tale that the path of betrayal always leads to a fall. And even decades later, as the shadows of old gangsters linger on the streets of Brooklyn, his story lives on. It reminds a new generation of wolves that there is a line you must not cross, a line beyond which you won't find freedom, but only a short and inglorious flight down. This was the story of Murder Incorporated and the man who destroyed it from within. A true story about how even in a lawless world, there are rules, and breaking them comes with an inevitable reckoning. I hope you felt the full power and tension of this criminal drama that unfolded on the streets of New York. This story is just one of thousands that the streets hold. If you enjoyed this format and want more real, raw, and motivating stories from the world hidden from our eyes, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, and be sure to write in the comments what lesson you learned from the story of the canary who couldn't fly. Your support is the fuel for new videos. Let's make a deal. If this video gets 10,000 likes, I will tell you about the Japanese Yakuza and their blood-curdling ritual of yubitsume, the act of cutting off one's own finger for an offense. You'll find out why they do it and what it means in their world. It's all in your hands. See you soon.
What's scarier than a bullet from an enemy? A knife in the back from someone you called a brother? Today, we're not talking about honor and glory. We're diving into a world where one wrong word is a one-way ticket. I'm going to tell you the true story of the most brutal and efficient crew of killers in the history of the American Mafia, and about the man who broke their cardinal rule, paying a legendary price for it. Brace yourselves, we're going in. Picture America in the 1930s, the Great Depression. The streets are cracking under the weight of poverty and rage. And in this chaos, new kings are born. Prohibition is over, and the Mafia, having made fortunes from bootlegging, is looking for new sources of income. The big bosses, like Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky, realize it's time to stop fighting each other. It's time to unite and build a business empire. And so, the National Crime Syndicate is born. But every corporation, even a criminal one, needs its own department for fixing problems. A department that is tough, ruthless, and efficient. This role was filled by a group that reporters would later dub Murder Incorporated. These weren't just thugs, they were professionals, enforcers who operated on the orders of the top mafia bosses from all over the country. Their headquarters was an ordinary candy shop in Brooklyn. Running this deadly assembly line were two men, the stern and cold-blooded Louis Lepke Buckhalter, a criminal mastermind, and Albert, the Lord High Executioner, whose name made even the most hardened gangsters tremble. Their soldiers were the elite of the street wars. They left no traces. Their favorite tool was an ice pick. It entered the body, leaving almost no evidence, and the victim would simply drop dead. In their world, there was one main, unbreakable law: omerta, the code of silence. You could kill, rob, extort, but you could never, under any circumstances, talk to the police. The punishment for breaking this code was always the same: a painful death. This was a blood oath that every member of the corporation took upon joining their ranks. They were a family, bound by fear and money. And in this family, there was one guy who stood out for his audacity and cruelty. His name was Abe Kid Twist Relis. He wasn't tall, but he was feared like fire. He grew up on the grimiest streets of Brooklyn and learned from childhood you're either a predator or prey. Relis was a born predator. He could kill a man for a wrong look and do it with a smile on his face. He was the perfect soldier for the corporation. Relis and his crew from Brownsville were the most effective enforcers. They were responsible for hundreds of lives. They operated like ghosts. They'd get a contract over the phone, head out for the job, and disappear into the night. The police were powerless. They knew a whole army of hitmen was operating in the city, but they didn't have a single lead, not a single witness. Murder Inc. seemed invincible. Their business thrived. For each job, they received between $1,000 and $5,000, a huge amount of money back then. They lived like kings of the streets. Expensive cars, beautiful women, the best restaurants. They felt like gods, the arbiters of fate. And Abe Relis was one of the high priests in this bloody cult. He believed in the law of the streets and the sanctity of omerta. But every empire eventually develops cracks. Power corrupts, and fear breeds paranoia. The bosses of the corporation began to suspect each other of betrayal. Lepke Buckhalter, feeling the heat, started ordering hits on those he thought might talk. A purge of their own ranks began. Yesterday's brothers became today's targets. The atmosphere in the crew became incredibly tense. Everyone was afraid of everyone else. Any phone call could be your last. And at this moment, a stubborn prosecutor named William O'Dwyer entered the scene. He made it his mission to destroy Murder Inc. and get to its top leadership. He started tightening the screws, arresting the gang's lower-level members one by one. And then Abe Relis himself gets caught in the web of justice. He's charged with a murder that could send him to the electric chair. As he sits in his cell, the walls closing in, he stares at the ceiling and realizes the men he was loyal to his entire life, for whom he delivered mountains of bodies and cash, would now easily sentence him to death to save their own skins. The code of silence no longer seemed so sacred. He faced a choice that breaks any street wolf. Die as a loyal dog for a system that's about to devour you, or break the ultimate code and try to survive. Die for the principles, or live by becoming a rat in the eyes of his former brothers. For Abe Relis, the brutal killer, the answer was obvious. He wanted to live, at any cost. Relis decides to talk. It was an explosion. The bloodiest and most effective killer in the corporation became the prosecution's star witness. The news ripped through the criminal underworld like a hurricane. It was unthinkable. It was a betrayal on a level the Mafia had never seen before. The man whose hands were drenched in blood began to sing to the police about all the syndicate's secrets.